The snow came down like a curtain that December evening, soft and relentless. Robert Matthews sat behind the wheel of his dark SUV, his hands steady despite the weather closing in around him. At 47, he'd learned patience through the hardest teacher of all, life itself. He was driving back from a long business meeting in the city, thinking about his 12-year-old daughter waiting at home with the housekeeper. 3 years had passed since his wife Sarah died, and some days the house still felt too quiet, too empty. But he'd learned to carry on. That's what fathers do. The highway stretched ahead, almost deserted now. Most sensible people had already made it home. The snow was getting heavier, and Robert slowed down, his experienced eyes scanning the road ahead. That's when he saw her. A figure stood on the shoulder of the highway, barely visible through the swirling snow. Robert's heart skipped. Even from a distance, he could see something was terribly wrong. The figure was swaying, and as he got closer, his headlights revealed a young woman in a light blue nurse's uniform, her blonde hair wet and disheveled, clinging to her face. She was holding something. No, not something. 2 small bundles pressed against her chest. Babies. Robert pulled over immediately, his emergency flashers cutting through the white darkness. He grabbed his coat and stepped out into the biting cold. "Miss, are you all right?" The woman turned toward him, and Robert saw tears streaming down her face, mixing with melted snow. She couldn't have been more than 30. Her nurse's uniform was soaked through, and she was shaking violently. The 2 infants in her arms, wrapped in what looked like red fabric, were crying weakly. "Please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please help my babies. They're so cold." Robert didn't hesitate. "Come with me. Right now. Get in the car." He guided her to the passenger side, helped her settle in with the infants, then quickly moved to the driver's seat. The warmth of the car's heater had never felt more important. "What happened?" he asked gently, cranking the heat up higher. "Where's your car?" The woman was crying harder now, clutching her babies. It broke down 2 miles back. Everything broke down. Everything. Her voice cracked with exhaustion and despair. "I tried to walk. I didn't know what else to do." Robert looked at the babies. Twins, by the looks of it, maybe 3 or 4 months old. Their little faces were red from cold, but they were breathing steadily now in the warmth. He felt something tighten in his chest. "My name's Robert," he said quietly. "You're safe now. Let's get you all warmed up first, then we'll figure out the rest." "Grace," she managed between sobs. "I'm Grace, and these are Emma and Ethan." Robert nodded, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Grace, I'm going to take you to my house. It's about 15 minutes from here. You need dry clothes, warm food, and those babies need proper care. Is that all right with you?" Grace looked at him with eyes full of fear and hope mixed together. I don't have anywhere else to go." Something in the way she said it made Robert understand this was about more than a broken-down car. The drive home was slow and careful. Grace held her twins close, and gradually her crying subsided into quiet exhaustion. Robert made small talk, gentle questions that didn't press too hard. He learned she was a night shift nurse at County Hospital, that she'd been living in a small apartment with the twins' father until 3 days ago, when he'd emptied their bank account and disappeared, that her landlord had locked her out that very morning for late rent, putting her belongings on the street while she was at work, that she'd been driving to her sister's house 2 states away when her old car finally gave up. "I had $47 in my purse," Grace said softly. "That's all I had left in the world. $47 and my 2 babies. Robert's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. "You have more than that, Grace. You have your strength. You got those babies this far. That takes more courage than most people have in their whole lives." She looked at him with wonder, as if kindness was something she'd forgotten existed. When they pulled into Robert's driveway, the house lights glowed warm and welcoming through the snow. It was a large home, perhaps too large for just him and his daughter, but tonight it felt exactly the right size. Martha, the housekeeper, met them at the door with wide eyes. "Mr. Matthews." "What on earth?" "Martha, this is Grace and her twins, Emma and Ethan. They need our help. Can you draw a warm bath and find some dry clothes? And maybe heat up some of that soup from dinner? Martha, who'd been with the family for 20 years, asked no questions. She simply nodded and sprang into action. That was the thing about good people, Robert thought. They recognized need when they saw it. His daughter Rebecca came down the stairs in her pajamas, her dark hair in a ponytail. "Dad, what's going on?" "Sweetheart, we have guests who need our help tonight." Rebecca looked at the babies, and her face lit up with the kind of compassion that made Robert proud. "They're so tiny. Can I help?" Over the next hour, the house filled with quiet activity. Martha found warm clothes for Grace. Rebecca, who'd been begging for a baby sibling for years, carefully held Emma while Grace bathed and changed. Robert prepared bottles of formula from supplies left over from when Rebecca was small, amazed that Martha had kept them organized in the basement all these years. Grace emerged from the bathroom looking like a different person. Dry, warm, wearing one of Martha's comfortable sweaters and soft pants. But her eyes still held that haunted look. They gathered in the kitchen, the babies now fed and sleeping in a makeshift bassinet Martha had created from a laundry basket and soft blankets. Grace held a mug of soup with trembling hands. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. When I was standing out there in the snow, I thought this was it. I thought I'd failed them." Robert shook his head firmly. "Grace, listen to me. You didn't fail anyone. Life failed you. There's a difference." He paused, memories washing over him. 3 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. For months after, I could barely function. I had a business to run, a 9-year-old daughter to raise, and most days I couldn't figure out how to do either. People helped me. My secretary took over meetings I couldn't focus on. Martha here practically raised Rebecca while I was lost in grief. My neighbors brought meals for months. He met Grace's eyes with understanding. We all need help sometimes. That doesn't make us failures. It makes us human. Grace's tears flowed again, but they were different now. Cleaner somehow. Stay here tonight, Robert said. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. I know a good mechanic who can look at your car. And Grace, you're a nurse. I sit on the board at Metropolitan Hospital. I can make some calls. I can't accept all this, Grace protested weakly. It's too much. It's not enough, Robert said simply. Those babies need their mother strong and stable. Let us help you get there. Rebecca looked up from where she was watching the sleeping twins. Mom used to say that kindness is just love in work clothes. I think she'd want us to help. Robert felt his throat tighten with pride and grief mixed together. Yes, sweetheart. She would. That night, Grace and the twins slept in the guest room. The house, which had felt too quiet for so long, was filled with the soft sounds of babies breathing, of life continuing, of hope renewed. In the morning, Robert made calls. His mechanic friend came to tow and assess Grace's car. The damage was terminal, but Robert quietly arranged for a reliable used car to be prepared. His contact at Metropolitan Hospital not only confirmed a nursing position, but arranged for employee housing assistance. Grace cried again when he told her, but this time Robert saw something different in her eyes. Not just relief, but a rekindling of something essential, the belief that good things could still happen. She stayed for 3 days while everything was arranged. In that time, Rebecca fell in love with the twins, and Martha's cooking ensured Grace regained some of the weight she'd lost from stress. The house felt alive again in a way it hadn't since Sarah died. On the morning Grace was set to leave, with her new job starting the following week and temporary housing arranged, she stood in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. How do I ever repay this? She asked. Robert smiled, thinking of his late wife, of his daughter, of all the hands that had held him up when he was falling. You don't repay it, Grace. You pay it forward. Someday, when you're steady on your feet again, you'll see someone else struggling, and you'll remember this. And you'll help them. That's how kindness works. It's not a debt. It's a river that keeps flowing, Grace nodded, understanding passing between them like a promise. Will you? She hesitated. Would it be all right if I stayed in touch? Maybe brought the twins by sometimes? Rebecca's been so good with them. Grace, Robert said warmly, you're not losing us. You're part of our story now, and we're part of yours. As her car pulled away, Rebecca stood beside her father, waving until Grace disappeared down the snowy road. "Dad?" Rebecca asked quietly. "Is it weird that I feel happy and sad at the same time?" Robert put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "No, sweetheart. That's just what it feels like when your heart grows. A little bit of sadness for what could have been lost, and a lot of happiness for what was saved." 6 months later, Grace came back for Sunday dinner, a tradition that would continue for years. The twins were bigger now, laughing and healthy. Grace looked strong, confident, wearing her new nurse's uniform with pride. She brought photos of her new apartment, told stories about her work, thanked Martha for the recipes that had helped her learn to cook proper meals. She showed them how Emma had just learned to roll over, how Ethan smiled every time he heard music. As the evening wound down and Rebecca played with the twins on the living room floor, Grace stood with Robert on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I was so lost that night," Grace said softly. "Standing in that snowstorm, I couldn't see any way forward. I couldn't see any hope at all." Robert nodded, understanding in his bones what she meant. "Funny thing about snowstorms," he said. "You can't see through them, but that doesn't mean there's nothing on the other side. Sometimes you just need someone to guide you through until the sky clears." Grace smiled, that haunted look finally gone from her eyes. "Thank you for being that someone, for all of us." "Thank you for letting us help," Robert replied. "You reminded me of something I'd forgotten. This house had been so quiet, so empty. You brought life back into it. You reminded Rebecca and me that there's still good work to be done in this world, still people worth saving, still reasons to keep the lights on and the doors open." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to Rebecca's laughter mixing with the twins' happy sounds from inside. "Your wife," Grace said carefully. "Sarah. Rebecca talks about her sometimes. She sounds like she was wonderful." "She was," Robert said, his voice steady with acceptance rather than pain. "She taught me that love isn't just what you feel. It's what you do. It's stopping on a snowy road. It's opening your door. It's making space in your life for people who need it." He smiled, feeling Sarah's presence in the gentle evening air. "I think she'd be proud of all of us." Grace reached over and squeezed his hand briefly. "I know she would be." As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Robert reflected on the strange and beautiful way life works. How the worst nights can lead to the best mornings. How helping others helps heal yourself. How kindness, once given, never really ends but multiplies and spreads like light. He thought about that snowstorm, about the frightened woman with her babies on a dark highway, about the choice to stop, to help, to open his door and his heart. It had seemed like such a small thing at the time. Pull over, bring them home, make them warm. But small things, he'd learned, are often the biggest things of all. Inside, Rebecca called out, "Dad! Grace, come see! Emma's laughing!" They went inside together, into the warmth and light, into the sound of children laughing, into the embrace of a family that had found each other on the darkest of nights and chosen to hold on. The snow outside had long since melted, but the warmth of that winter evening would last a lifetime. Some roads lead us home. Some roads lead home to us, and sometimes, on the coldest nights, the greatest gift we can give is simply being there when someone needs us most.